My name is Cassandra Marin, but everyone calls me Cass. I'm 38, an accountant who color codes everything: budgets, grocery lists, even birthdays. Maybe that's how I keep chaos from swallowing me whole. Saturday morning. Louisville feels like spring finally remembered us. The backyard smells of cut grass and frosting. I tie the last blue balloon to the fence and step back. 9 chairs circle the picnic table, paper crowns at each place setting. The rented bounce house, $285 that made my credit card flinch, sways gently in the breeze. Eli darts through the open slider wearing his superhero cape, the fabric fluttering behind him. Are they here yet? Mom? Not yet. Buddy? They said they'd come early to help. I keep my voice bright. Light, the way you talk to kids and clients when panic doesn't belong in your tone. He nods, trusting me, and disappears inside to check the window again. I glance at my phone. 11:42 a.m. Mom promised to bring the cupcakes by 11. Ryan said he'd handle drinks. Lila swore she'd pick up balloons, as if I didn't already have 40 of them. By noon, the frosting on the cake has begun to sweat. Eli stands at the gate, every car that passes making him bounce on his toes. That's Grandma's car. No, wait, maybe that one. Neighbors start filtering in parents from his class, a few kids from down the street. They bring gifts wrapped in Spider-Man paper, juice boxes, noise. For a moment, it almost feels right. Then I see the driveway. Still empty. Eli looks up at me, the paint on his face smudged into a blue streak. Maybe Grandma's bringing a big surprise. He says, half hope, half plea. Maybe. I manage. At 1:30, the gate finally creaks open. My sister Carol steps through, a small gift bag in hand and apology in her eyes. Traffic was awful, she murmurs. Eli hugs her politely but keeps scanning behind her. Where's Grandma Carol's shoulders sag? She couldn't make it today. Sweetheart. The words hang in the air like deflated balloons. Eli presses his lips together, blinking hard. Did Grandma forget me? I kneel beside him, my smile a mask I can barely hold. Around us, laughter from other children fills the yard, too loud, too cheerful, as if to cover the sound of something breaking quietly inside. The bounce house keeps swaying, waiting for guests who will never come. By late afternoon, the yard looked as if a storm had passed through, paper plates overturned, frosting smudged across the tablecloth, balloons clinging to the fence like survivors. I stacked the chairs, deflated the bounce house, and told myself the quiet was a kind of peace. Eli was inside watching a movie, his laughter soft and tired, the way it sounds when a child has decided not to expect too much. I sank onto the porch steps with my phone, meaning to scroll aimlessly until my hands stopped shaking. The first post that appeared nearly made me drop it. My mother, my brother Ryan, my sister Lila, and Grandma were seated at a sunny cafe downtown, mimosas raised in perfect symmetry. The caption read, "Family First." The photo gleamed warm light, smiling faces, clinking glasses, not a hint of guilt, not a shadow of my son waiting at the window. My stomach turned. I zoomed in on the image until the pixels blurred, half hoping I was wrong. But there it was, the necklace I gave Mom last Christmas. The one I bought after staying up half the night debating if I could afford it. $850 in gifts that year, so she wouldn't feel embarrassed in front of the others. Last month, I'd wired Ryan $1,400 for tuition he swore was due the next morning. He'd texted a thank you emoji and nothing since. Now, I stared at their brunch plates piled with fruit and pastries, the champagne flutes catching light like trophies. A memory hit me, Mom saying, "You're the steady one. Cass, you understand how family works." Maybe I did. Maybe I was the only one who treated family like a bill with no due date. The laughter in the photo looked rehearsed, the kind that comes easy when someone else is footing the tab. I turned off my phone, the screen reflecting my own face for a second smudged mascara. Tired eyes. A woman who'd paid for every smile in that picture and still couldn't buy her way into it. Inside. Eli called my name, his voice small and hopeful. I took a breath, stood, and went back in. Monday morning started like any other coffee brewing, cereal bowls clinking, sunlight cutting across the counter. Eli hummed while packing his backpack, his voice still raspy with sleep. I was spreading peanut butter on bread when my phone buzzed beside the toaster. Need $2,600 for your brother's grad party. Deposit due today. No greeting. No apology. Just expectation. Shaped into a sentence. I read it twice, waiting for disbelief to fade, then laughed a brittle, breathless sound that didn't feel like mine. Eli looked up. What's funny? Mom, nothing. Sweetheart, I said, flipping the sandwich closed. My hands were shaking. When he left for school, the house went still. The message sat open on my screen like a bruise that refused to fade. I opened my banking app, $4,200 in the account. Every cent already planned braces, tutoring, groceries, not one penny for champagne flutes and rented halls. I thought of Christmas, the $850 I'd spent so Mom could keep her pride, of Ryan's tuition loan that never came back, of all the times I'd been told I was the responsible one, as if that meant I owed everyone something. Another buzz Lila this time. Mom said you'd handle the payment. I set the phone down gently, as if it might burn through the counter. My reflection in the microwave door looked unfamiliar, tired, steady, something colder behind the eyes. I turned to the stove, stirring the pot of spaghetti sauce I'd started for dinner. The smell of tomatoes filled the room, warm and grounding. I focused on the small, ordinary motions: stir, taste, breathe until my heartbeat slowed. When the phone buzzed again, I didn't look. For the first time, silence felt like an answer I could live with. That night, the house felt smaller than usual. The hum of the refrigerator filled every corner, the clock over the stove ticking like a quiet metronome. Eli had fallen asleep on the couch, curled beneath the blanket his grandmother sent him last Christmas, the only gift that didn't come with a price tag. I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop open, the phone beside it, glowing in the dark. The unread messages still waited in the family group chat: deposit due today. Handle it. Cass. I stared until the words lost meaning. Then I opened Venmo. In the amount box, I typed 1. In the note field, good luck. My thumb hovered for a second before I hit send. A small, sharp sound followed the quiet whoosh of something final leaving my hands. The confirmation screen flashed blue. It looked almost like freedom. I took a long breath, the kind that trembles halfway through. Then I opened a blank spreadsheet and began to fill it. Christmas gifts, loans, emergencies, 800 here, 1,000 there. The list grew in neat rows, each one heavier than the last. When I totaled the column, the number stared back at me: $23,400. I hadn't realized how much I'd paid for belonging. Morning came gray and cold. I made coffee and called the locksmith. He arrived just after 9, a quiet man named Frank with a toolbox and an easy whistle. New locks, he asked, front and back. I said. He nodded and got to work. The drill's whirred, metal clicked, and shavings scattered like glitter across the threshold. When he handed me the new keys, the weight in my palm felt strange lighter. Somehow, as the last screw tightened, the final click echoed through the hallway. It wasn't loud, but it carried something deeper than noise. For the first time in years, the sound of the lock settling was louder than any argument my family could make. Frank wiped his hands on a rag and smiled. All set, ma'am. I nodded, closing the door behind him, and leaned against it until the quiet felt safe again. A week passed without a word. The quiet settled into corners like dust, visible only when light hit it just right. Eli and I found new rhythms: homework at the kitchen table, dinner at 7, bedtime stories that didn't end in disappointment. I almost started to believe silence could be safety. Then came the pounding. It was dusk on a Friday. I was rinsing dishes when the first thud rattled the front door. Eli looked up from the couch, eyes wide. The pounding came again, harder this time, followed by my mother's voice, sharp and echoing. "Cassandra Ann Marin, open this door right now." My heart dropped through the peephole. I saw her on the porch, Ryan and Lila flanking her like a jury. Mom's lipstick was perfect, her expression anything but. "This is family business," she yelled. "You don't ignore your own blood, I didn't move." My hands shook, but I kept them on the doorknob without turning it. Behind me, Eli whispered, "Mom." "What's happening? Nothing you need to worry about." "Honey, go to your room." "Okay." Ryan's fist hit the door again. "You embarrassed us. The hotel called asking about the payment. Now everyone knows you backed out." I backed away slowly, forcing my voice to stay calm. "Leave, or I'll call the police." "You wouldn't dare," Lila spat. "You owe this family." The porch light flickered as if the house itself hesitated. Then came the sirens closer, closer, until blue light flooded through the window blinds. My chest loosened, just a little. Officer Thompson stepped out of the cruiser, his familiar gait slow and measured. He'd coached Eli's soccer team last spring. "Evening, Miss Marin," he said gently. "We got a call about a family dispute." Mom started talking over him immediately, waving her phone. "She's withholding family property and sending threatening messages." He raised a hand. "Ma'am." "I'll handle it. Inside." I showed him my phone texts, receipts, the $1 transfer. No property, no threats. "Just boundaries," I said quietly. He nodded as he scrolled. "You've done nothing wrong." Through the window, I saw his flashlight beam sweep across their faces, their anger shrinking under its glare. The reflection caught the new brass locks, the same ones that had cost me $180 and an entire history of guilt. When they finally drove away, I stood by the door, the blue light still pulsing across the hallway walls. It shimmered against the locks like armor, a faint hum of peace that, for once, belonged only to me. By morning, my phone was already lighting up. The first notification came from Facebook. Lila's post pinned to the top of my feed. "Money means more than family to some people." Underneath, a photo from years ago, me, Mom, and my siblings at Thanksgiving, arms linked, smiles staged. The comments piled up faster than I could scroll. "So sad when greed takes over. Family should forgive." A few distant cousins chimed in with hearts and prayers, none of them asking what actually happened. I locked my screen and set the phone face down on the counter, the same way you might cover a wound that's still bleeding. Eli sat at the table, spooning cereal, humming a tune from last week's cartoon marathon. The ordinary rhythm of his morning felt like a small act of rebellion against all that noise. By mid-afternoon, a text arrived from Aunt Carol. "Proud of you." About time someone said no. No lecture, no questions, just those few words. I read them 3 times, letting them settle somewhere behind my ribs. An hour later, I opened the door to find a loaf of banana bread wrapped in foil on the porch. A note in careful cursive rested on top. "You're not alone, Mrs. Wilson." My neighbor had lived 2 houses down since Eli was born. She'd seen the parade of family cars that always arrived with empty hands and left with full ones. Somehow she knew this was different. Eli came home from school carrying a sheet of paper splashed with crayon colors. "Look, Mom," he said proudly. 2 stick figures held hands beneath a bright sun. Across the top, in his best printing, "My family, Hayat, me and Mom." I felt something loosen inside me, a quiet cracking where anger had been wedged too long. I taped the drawing to the fridge, smoothing the corners flat. The hum of the refrigerator filled the silence as I stood there, staring at our reflection in the silver door, just the 2 of us. Enough, at last. The call came just after dinner, while Eli was rinsing dishes beside me. The number was unfamiliar, but something about the area code made me answer. Cass. The voice was rough, hesitant. "It's Robert, your dad's brother." I froze. I hadn't heard from him since I was a kid, back when Dad was still around and Mom still smiled in pictures. "I hope this isn't a bad time," he said. "Your mother's been calling, told me you're making trouble." The old ache stirred in my chest, but his tone wasn't accusing, just weary, like someone who'd already lived through what I was facing. "What kind of trouble?" I asked. He exhaled slowly. "Cass, your mom's always done this. She drained your father for years, money, patience, everything. When he finally left, she told everyone he abandoned you. But he was empty. She used guilt like currency. Sound familiar. The words landed like pebbles in still water, rippling through memories I'd buried too deep. I'd spent so long thinking Dad left because I wasn't enough, because I'd failed to hold the family together. But maybe the truth had nothing to do with me at all. Robert's voice softened. He worried you'd inherit her weight, not her habits, just her burden. You can set it down. Cass. I pressed a hand to my chest, steadying the tremor there. "I think I already started," I said quietly. Eli peeked around to the doorway, towel in hand. "Who's that?" "Mom and Uncle," I answered, meeting his curious eyes. He knew Grandpa. Robert's chuckle crackled through the line. "Good boy. Keep him close. Cass. Don't let the past raise him." After we hung up, I wrapped Eli in a quick hug. "We're breaking the pattern." "Okay." He nodded, simple and sure. "Yeah, Mom. We already are." 2 months later, the air in Louisville grew thick and sweet with summer. The world outside our little house moved on graduations, vacations, family photos that didn't include us. Inside, life felt quiet, almost tender. Eli and I spent Saturday mornings making pancakes, our laughter echoing off the yellow walls we'd painted together. Peace had a rhythm I was finally learning. That Sunday, as I folded laundry, my phone buzzed. Aunt Carol's name appeared on the screen. "Cass," she said, her voice caught somewhere between anger and disbelief. "You're not going to believe this. The hotel canceled the graduation party." I straightened a towel slowly. "Why they never paid the balance? $9,000 short. Your mom told them you'd already covered it. When the manager called to confirm, everything blew up. They're furious and blaming you." The words hung there, ridiculous and inevitable, for a heartbeat. I waited for the sting. It didn't come. I just let out a quiet laugh that surprised us both. Carol chuckled too, though hers sounded tired. "You're handling this better than I expected." "I'm done handling it," I said. "I'm just not participating." After we hung up, I checked Facebook. Mom's post was already up. Some people forget who raised them. Money changes hearts. Dozens of likes, comments of pity, the same chorus as always. I stared for a moment, then took a screenshot proof. Maybe, or closure, and deleted the app. The silence that followed felt clean. Outside, Eli was crouched in the yard, digging a small hole near the porch. "We're planting the acorns," he said proudly when I joined him, "so we can have our own trees." We pressed each acorn into the dirt, patting it down gently. His hands were small, his grin unguarded. "Trees take time," I said. "That's okay," he answered. "We're staying put." We watered the soil together, the sun slipping low across the lawn. Somewhere far away, a party collapsed under its own weight. And here, something new took root. The smell of paint filled the house sharp and clean, like something beginning again. Eli stood barefoot on an old sheet, roller in hand, streaks of yellow climbing the wall in uneven bands. The afternoon light caught the wet paint, turning it almost golden. I dipped my own brush and covered the last patch of beige near the window. That color had been my mother's choice when I first bought the house, neutral and respectable, she'd said. Now each stroke of yellow felt like a quiet refusal. "Mom," Eli said, concentrating hard. It's like sunshine inside. I smiled. That's the idea. From the doorway, Mrs. Wilson appeared, wiping her hands on her gardening gloves. Need an extra pair of eyes? She asked. Behind her came James from work, balancing a flat box labeled bookshelf. Assembly required. I figured this might help with all the things you keep stacked on the floor, he said, grinning. I laughed, feeling the sound surprise me. You two just saved me from another weekend of tripping over everything. Mrs. Wilson fetched the screwdriver while James started sorting bolts. The small room hummed with the quiet rhythm of shared work, the scrape of metal, Eli's soft chatter, the steady sweep of brushes. For the first time in a long while, the air felt easy. When the shelf finally stood against the fresh yellow wall, Eli began lining up his books by color. Blue next to green looks cool, he declared, stepping back to admire it. James brushed dust from his hands. You've got good taste, kid. Eli grinned at him, then looked at me. Can we keep it like this forever? I met his eyes and nodded. As long as we want to. Outside, the late light spilled across the porch, warm and steady. Inside, our walls glowed like morning, and for once, it felt like the house had decided to breathe with us. A year later, Cherokee Park glowed in the soft light of late afternoon. The picnic tables were covered with mismatched cloths, a patchwork of colors and stories. Laughter drifted through the trees, blending with the hum of cicadas and the faint music from someone's speaker down the hill. Eli turned 10 that day. He was darting between the grill and the creek, his sneakers already splattered with mud. Mrs. Wilson brought her famous potato salad. James handled the burgers, and Aunt Carol showed up with a tray of cupcakes she and Eli had baked the night before. Neighbors came with folding chairs and smiles. There was no perfection to the setup, no forced politeness, just easy company, the kind that asked for nothing. I stood beside the cooler, pouring lemonade, watching it all unfold like a scene from someone else's life. Except it wasn't someone else's anymore. It was ours. When I went to grab more napkins, I noticed a small envelope tucked inside the picnic basket. The handwriting stopped me cold, my mother's cursive, careful and looping. Inside was a $50 bill and a note written in blue ink. Happy birthday, grandson, no lecture, no conditions, just that. I folded the note and slipped it into my pocket. The wind caught the edge of the tablecloth, and I pressed it down, grounding it like something fragile but real. As dusk settled, fireflies began to rise from the grass, tiny sparks weaving through the air. Eli chased them with a jar, his laughter echoing across the field. I sat back in my chair, feeling the weight of the year lift. They'd once called the police when I said no, but saying no had been the first time I truly said yes to peace, to freedom, to us.